imagine something for a second. Imagine a man is fatally stabbed from behind.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, the blade of a spear literally pierces right through his back and just comes out of his chest. So he's looking down at this fatal wound.
Right.
And instead of screaming or, panicking or cursing his attacker, he just wipes his face with his own blood, smiles, and shouts, "I have won."
Which is just, I mean, it's completely unbelievable.
It really is. And today we're doing a deep dive into the exact psychological and historical phenomenon that created that moment.
Because it's not just a one-off thing, right?
Exactly. We're exploring a level of devotion that just totally bends the rules of human nature. We are looking at the life of Prophet Muhammad, the legacy of the greatest man who ever lived.
It's just such a remarkable era to analyze. When we look at the historical texts from this period, we really aren't just recounting a timeline of like battles or political
Yeah,
shit.
it's so much deeper than that.
It is. We are looking at a radical reprogramming of the human spirit. I mean, the accounts describe a community bound by a sentiment and an awe that was so powerful, it completely dismantled their existing social structures.
And replace them with something entirely new, right?
Exactly. We're examining how a fiercely tribal, often revenge-based society was transformed into a community defined by just unbreakable faith and profound restraint.
And so the goal for this deep dive is to look past the surface of those historical events. We want to understand the mechanics of that transformation.
Yeah, how did it actually happen?
Right. What were the miraculous moments, the profound love, and the core convictions that define the followers of this unparalleled legacy? Because to really grasp the scale of this, we first have to look at the people surrounding the prophet. What was actually driving them?
Well, it clearly wasn't just the harsh desert environment they lived in,
Yeah, definitely not.
No, it wasn't geographic at all. It was deeply ideological. There's this really frequent assumption that 7th century Arabia was simply a militant society. Like that these were naturally warlike people who viewed conflict as just a primary way of life.
But the records show something totally different, right?
They do. The historical records reveal a much more complex reality. The true dividing line in this community wasn't about who was the toughest warrior or who had the strongest tribal lineage. The ultimate separator was Iman, which translates to deep internalized faith versus hypocrisy.
Wait, let me stop you there. When you say hypocrisy in this context, what does that actually look like on the ground?
That's a great question.
Because there is a very famous incident where a massive group of men just walk away right before a critical confrontation.
Yeah, the 300 men.
Right. You have these young members in the community intensely eager to defend their people, but on the exact same day, this group of 300 men led by a guy named Abdullah, they completely withdraw.
They just defected when the fear set in.
Exactly. And from a modern survival standpoint, walking away from a terrifying battle seems like, I don't know, the logical choice. Why is this framed as a failure of character rather than just like basic self-preservation?
Well, that is the crucial question. It wasn't merely a tactical retreat. It was an ideological betrayal that genuinely threatened the existence of the entire community.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, these 300 men wanted the social and political gains of being part of this rising community, but without any of the pains. It's the mindset of conditional devotion.
So they were fine when things were easy.
Exactly. They were front and center when things were peaceful, profitable, or when they could gain social standing. But the moment immense sacrifice was required to protect their shared values, they just vanished.
So it's like a buffet-style approach to conviction?
A buffet-style approach. I like that.
Yeah, you just walk down the line, picking and choosing whatever feels good, whatever serves your ego or your wallet, but you leave all the heavy lifting behind. And the texts actually give some incredibly relatable examples of this, don't they?
They really do. The historical narratives describe people who pray fervently for something highly specific, like a marriage or financial success.
Right, begging for a breakthrough.
Right. They beg the divine, making all these extra efforts. But the second they get exactly what they want, they suffer this sudden amnesia regarding their faith.
Wow.
Or you see individuals who selectively weaponize religious teachings. Like they absolutely love the parts that demand a respect from their families.
Oh, of course.
But they conveniently ignore the teachings that require them to stand up for the truth when it actually costs them something personal.
Looking at it from a modern perspective, this duality totally undermines the concept of trust. I mean, if your conviction is conditional, if you only show up when the weather is fair, then your devotion isn't to the truth, it's just to your own comfort.
Precisely.
But that brings us to the flip side of the coin. If true faith requires standing firm even when it is absolutely terrifying, who and what were the rest of them standing firm for?
Well, they were standing firm for a leader who had really become their entire world. The accounts detail a relationship between the prophet and his followers that is just, it's difficult to find a parallel for in history.
It really is.
He wasn't just a political head. He was their teacher, a
Yeah.
father figure, the sole source of their spiritual guidance. And because of that intense reliance, the community actually had to be psychologically prepared for his eventual passing.
That makes total sense. I mean, if a movement is built entirely on the charisma of one living person, it usually collapses the moment that person dies.
Exactly. And there was a specific devastating moment during a major crisis where a false rumor spread through the ranks that the prophet had been killed.
Oh, man.
Psychological shock was just immense. But historically, this served as a profound test. It forced them to confront a terrifying reality. He is a human messenger, and like all humans, he will eventually pass away.
So they had to rely on the message itself.
Right. Their ultimate duty had to be to the message itself, not just the physical presence of the man. They had to learn, in real time, how to carry that message forward, even while navigating overwhelming grief.
But the love they had for him before that transition, I mean, it is just staggering.
It's incredible.
There is this story of two men from his community who are captured and sold to their enemies in Mecca, and they are facing public execution.
Right. A horrific situation.
Yeah, they are dragged out, and their captors, trying to inflict some psychological torture before the end, ask them a very pointed question. They say, wouldn't you rather be safe at home with your families right now and have Muhammad here in your place to be executed?
And I want you to think about the immense leverage the captors have in that moment. You are staring at the executioner's blade. You are thinking of your children, your spouse, the life you are about to lose.
It's the ultimate pressure test of human loyalty.
It really is.
And their response is just unbelievable. They look at their captors and state that they would rather give their own lives than see him even pricked by a single thorn.
Yeah, a single thorn.
Even the enemy leader at the time, Abu Sufyan, who was standing right there orchestrating this whole thing, he had to publicly concede. He admitted he had never seen a people love anyone the way these followers loved Muhammad.
Which is a huge admission from an enemy.
It is, but I have to push back a little on this because it's hard for a lot of people today to fathom that level of devotion.
Sure.
We see leaders demand absolute loyalty all the time, but it's usually coerced through fear. What makes a leader inspire that kind of willing sacrifice? Charisma and good speeches don't make a person volunteer for an execution.
You are absolutely right. You cannot fake that level of devotion at the edge of a sword. It wasn't inspired by words. It was inspired by how radically he altered their understanding of human value.
How so?
Well, in a region where leaders routinely spent the lives of their followers in endless tribal blood feuds, he consistently chose the path of least bloodshed. He valued the lives of his people and his enemies more than his own glory.
Let's look at how that actually played out tactically, like the situation with Khalid bin Sufyan.
Yes, perfect example.
The intelligence arrives that Khalid is mobilizing a massive force to attack them. Now, usually in that era, the response to a mobilizing army is obvious. You draft your own massive army, you meet them in the desert, and thousands of people are slaughtered in a catastrophic clash.
Right, that was the socio-political norm. Total war was just the standard mechanism for resolving disputes. But the prophet's approach completely dismantled that norm.
So what did he do instead?
Instead of engaging in a full-scale war, a single, highly capable man named Abdullah is sent on a surgical mission. The objective is to neutralize the specific threat, the commander Khalid, and thereby spare the blood of thousands of people on both sides.
The psychological details of this mission are what really catch my attention. The prophet gives Abdullah a specific sign to identify his target in the enemy camp. He tells him, if you see him, you will tremble.
Yeah, which is fascinating.
Right. Now, Abdullah is a seasoned veteran. He is a man who explicitly states he fears no one. So if he's fearless, why does he shiver?
It speaks to the gravity of the spiritual and physical responsibility he was carrying. It wasn't a tremble of cowardice. It was the sheer overwhelming reality of identifying the focal point of a massive, impending war.
Oh, wow.
His body physically reacts, confirming the identity of the target. He completes the mission, the leaderless army disperses, and a catastrophic regional war is entirely averted.
And the aftermath of that mission is just fascinating. When Abdullah returns, he isn't given a chest of gold or a crown. He is gifted a stick by the prophet.
A simple stick?
Yeah, he's told the simple piece of wood will be a sign between them on the day of judgment. Abdullah treasures it so deeply that he ties it to his sword for the rest of his life and eventually asks to be buried with it.
It's beautiful.
It's like diffusing a massive bomb by cutting one specific critical wire rather than letting the whole city block collapse. It's a surgical, calculated move meant entirely to preserve life.
And this is exactly how a leader earns that kind of unfathomable love. When the people realize that their leader views their lives as sacred, not as cannon fodder, their loyalty becomes unconditional.
Absolutely.
But the truly remarkable thing is how this macro-level leadership, this deep respect for life and dignity, trickled all the way down to the individual followers. Even when they were completely isolated, lacking any upper hand, they maintained their humanity.
Which brings us back to Khubayb, another captive waiting for execution in Mecca.
Right.
He's being held in a house knowing he is going to die. He asks their captors for a steel blade, purely to prepare himself physically for death according to the personal hygiene traditions of his faith. He just wants to meet his end with dignity.
Yes, and while he is sitting there holding this sharp blade, a young child of his captors, the very people who were orchestrating his murder, wanders into the room and crawls right into his lap.
I mean, from a purely tactical standpoint, he suddenly has the ultimate leverage. In a revenge-based culture, taking an enemy's child hostage to negotiate your own freedom wouldn't just be logical, it would be expected.
Right. Everyone would understand that move.
And then the child's mother walks in and sees her child sitting in the lap of a man her family is about to execute while he holds a blade. She is absolutely terrified.
But Khubayb's reaction is culturally shocking.
Yeah.
He doesn't take the hostage. He looks at the terrified mother and assures her he would never harm an innocent child.
Wow.
Even knowing he is hours away from being killed, his moral compass remains completely unshakable. He refuses to cross that line. A person with true integrity does not take revenge on the innocent, regardless of the leverage it provides.
He even asks to pray just before they execute him, and he intentionally makes the prayer short.
Yeah, which is so telling.
He turns to them afterward and says, "I would have prayed longer, but I didn't want you to think I was stalling out of fear of death." He is managing their perception of his faith until the very last second.
It's incredible.
That level of conviction is just, I mean, it's hard to wrap your head around, but it connects directly to the story we opened the show with, which might be one of the most heartbreaking accounts we are covering, the ambush of the 70 reciters.
It is a truly devastating event. These 70 men were not soldiers. They were sent purely as peaceful teachers. They were the reciters of the Quran.
Right, their lives were very simple.
Exactly. Their daily lives were incredibly austere and devout. They sold cut wood during the day just to survive, and they spent their nights in prayer. They were officially invited by another tribe to teach, given a solemn guarantee of safety, and then brutally ambushed and betrayed in the desert.
They were massacred. And this is where we get to that opening moment. During this ambush, one of these teachers, a man named Haram, is fatally stabbed from behind. The spear goes completely through him.
In any conventional human context, this is a moment of ultimate panic. Your life is over. You have been betrayed. Everything you worked for has seemingly failed.
But he doesn't panic. He wipes his face with his own blood and shouts, "I have won. I really need us to analyze this. Why on earth would a man bleeding out in the dirt think he has won anything?"
Because he had completely redefined the parameters of victory. For the people who ambushed him, victory was physical survival and political dominance.
Right.
But for Haram, victory was the untouchable integrity of his soul. He was looking at physical death, but he saw ultimate spiritual triumph. He realized that despite the betrayal, despite the pain, he had succeeded in remaining true to his creator and his principles until his very last breath. No one could take that from him.
It is a total paradigm shift, and it was so entirely outside the realm of normal human behavior that it caused a psychological break in his assassin.
Yes.
The man who killed him couldn't just walk away and celebrate his kill. He becomes obsessed. He goes around investigating, asking people, what did he mean? How could he have won when I am the one who killed him?
The assassin is confronted with a worldview that is vastly superior to his own. When he finally uncovers the concept that victory was the eternal purity of Haram's soul, and his status as a martyr for the truth, it shatters his existing beliefs.
That's amazing.
The profound integrity he witnessed in the man he murdered actually catalyzes his own conversion to the faith. The blood of the victim literally transformed the soul of the killer.
This brings us to how the community processed these traumatic losses, because this level of soul-deep integrity didn't just move people. According to the historical records of the time, the followers believed it moved the very forces of nature.
Yeah, the accounts following these sacrifices feature events that are deeply mystical.
What are some examples of that?
Well, the text details several awe-inspiring exits from this world. For instance, the account of Amir bin Fuhaira, another one of the peaceful teachers who fell in that same betrayal. The historical narrative, which was actually reported by the enemies themselves, states that upon his death, his body was lifted up into the sky by angels.
Wow. And then there is the incredibly cinematic account of Asim.
Oh yes, Asim.
He was the leader of a small group that was ambushed. He refused to surrender to people who had broken their pledges, choosing to fight until the end. But he knew something horrific. There was a massive, humiliating bounty on his head.
Right, a really gruesome one.
A woman from an enemy tribe had offered 100 camels to anyone who would bring her his skull so she could drink wine from it.
It was an attempt to completely strip a person of their dignity, to reduce a noble leader to a grotesque trophy. So Asim prays a specific prayer. He asks that just as he rigorously protected his faith and his body and life, his body be protected from desecration and death.
Okay, so what happens?
He falls in battle, and his enemies immediately rush forward to claim that massive bounty of camels.
But according to the accounts, they can't get to him. A fierce swarm of wasps suddenly descends and completely blankets his body. Anyone who tries to step close is viciously attacked.
Yeah, it's just wild.
The enemies are forced to retreat, and they figure they'll just wait it out. They decide to wait until night falls, assuming